Hello, this is Shmuel Moshe, and you are listening to the Weekly Parashahcast, the weekly Torah portion podcast where I read the weekly Torah portion and then provide my own interpretation of what I think it all means. This week's Torah portion falls on the 23rd of Sivan, 5784, that's June 29th, 2024, and it is Parashah Shelach. Shelach means send. We'll be beginning with Chapter 13, Verse 1 of the Book of Numbers, Bamidbar. Let's go ahead and jump right on in. As always, if you want to follow along in English, you can do so via Chabad.org. Bamidbar, Chapter 13, Verse 1. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Send out for yourself men who will scout the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the children of Israel. You shall send one man each for his father's tribe. Each one shall be a chieftain in their midst." So Moses sent them from the desert of Paran by the word of the Lord. All of them were men of distinction. They were the heads of the children of Israel. These are their names. For the tribe of Reuben, Shammua the son of Zakur. For the tribe of Simeon, Shaphat the son of Hori. For the tribe of Judah, Caleb the son of Jephunneh. For the tribe of Issachar, Igal the son of Yosef. For the tribe of Ephraim, Hoshea the son of Nun. For the tribe of Benjamin, Palti the son of Raphu. For the tribe of Zebulun, Gadiel the son of Sodi. For the tribe of Joseph, for the tribe of Menashe, Gadi the son of Sosi. For the tribe of Dan, Amiel the son of Gemali. For the tribe of Asher, Setur the son of Michael. For the tribe of Naphtali, Nabhi the son of Vopsi. For the tribe of Gad, Geuel the son of Machi. These are the names of the men Moses sent to scout the land, and Moses called Hoshea the son of Nun, Joshua. Moses sent them to scout the land of Canaan, and he said to them, "Go up this way in the south and climb up the mountain. You shall see what kind of land it is, and the people who inhabit it. Are they strong or weak? Are there few or many? And what of the land they inhabit? Is it good or bad? And what of the cities in which they reside? Are they in camps or in fortresses? What is the soil like? Is it fat or lean? Are there any trees in it or not? You shall be courageous and take from the fruit of the land." It was the season when the first grapes began to ripen. All right, so here we have the first portion. There is a mission. Spies, scouts are going to go into the promised land. The Lord is commanding Moses to send these scouts to go and do their little survey. And as we heard, Moses has some very specific things they're supposed to check on. Tell us about the people, tell us about the land, things of that nature. Now, interestingly, when we look at the 12 tribes here, it's pretty straightforward, right? Tribe of Judah, and then whose son, right? But with the tribe specifically of Menashe, it's for the tribe of Joseph, for the tribe of Menashe. So it's actually both. Both are relevant here because, as we recall, Joseph he's considered to be one of the 12 sons, right? But his sons get adopted in his place in the official 12 tribes list there. So here we have as the representative of Joseph's line through Menashe, whereas Ephraim, the other of his sons, has the son Joshua, or Hoshea, who's Joshua. All right, so anyway, beyond that, we're going to go ahead and find out. They're going into the land while it is a good time for harvest, so they're going to see just what kind of land they've been promised. It's time to survey. On to the second portion. Chapter 13, verse 21. So they went up and explored the land from the desert of Zin until Rehov, at the entrance of Hamath. They went up in the south, and he came to Hebron, and there were Ahiman, Sheshai, and Talmai, the descendants of the giant. Now Hebron had been built 7 years before Zoan of Egypt. They came to the valley of Eshcol, and they cut a branch with a cluster of grapes. They carried it on a pole between two people, and they also took some pomegranates and figs. They called the place the valley of Eshcol, because of the cluster, Eshcol, the children of Israel cut from there. They returned from scouting the land at the end of 40 days. They went and they came to Moses and Aaron, and all the congregation of the children of Israel in the desert of Paran, to Kadesh. They brought them back a report, as well as to the entire congregation, and they showed them the fruit of the land. They told him and said, "We came to the land which you sent us, and it is flowing with milk and honey, and this is its fruit. However, the people who inhabit the land are mighty, and the cities are extremely huge and fortified. And there we saw even the offspring of the giant. The Amalekites dwell in the southland, while the Hittites, the Jebusites, and the Amorites dwell in the mountainous region. The Canaanites dwell on the coast and alongside the Jordan." Caleb silenced the people to hear about Moses, and he said, "We can surely go up and take possession of it, for we can indeed overcome it." But the men who went up with him said, "We are unable to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we." they spread an evil report about the land which they had scouted, telling the children of Israel, "The land we passed through to explore is a land that consumes its inhabitants, and all the people we saw in it are men of stature. There we saw the giants, the sons of Anak, descended from the giants. In our eyes we seemed like grasshoppers, and so we were in their eyes." Chapter 14, verse 1. The entire community raised their voices and shouted, and the people wept on that night. All the children of Israel complained against Moses and Aaron, and the entire congregation said, "Oh, if only we had died in the land of Egypt, or if only we had died in this desert! Why does the Lord bring us to this land to fall by the sword? Our wives and children will be as spoils. Is it not better for us to return to Egypt?" They said to each other, "Let us appoint a leader and return to Egypt." Moses and Aaron fell on their faces before the entire congregation of the children of Israel. Joshua the son of Nun and Caleb the son of Jephunneh, who were among those who had scouted the land, tore their clothes. They spoke to the entire congregation of the children of Israel, saying, "The land we passed through to scout is an exceedingly good land." So here we have the end of the second portion. The scouts have gone in, and we see they cover the area from the desert of Zin to Rehov at the entrance of Hamat. They go from the south, they come to Hebron, and they see the descendants of the giant, right? So basically these people, their physical stature is huge. They are descended of giant people. So this is like a height thing. So anyway, beyond that, they get some very nice fruits that they take from the valley of Eshcol. And when they come back, after seeing all these things, they show the delicious fruit and they say it is indeed a land of milk and honey, but the people who live there already are way too much for us. There's no way we could ever defeat them. We would get slaughtered. We'd be destroyed. We would get completely crushed by these people who live there. We are like grasshoppers in their eyes. Behold, they inhabit this land and that land, and they're the descendants of giants. And what are we? Oh, there's no way we'll ever be able to make it there. And the problem is, when they make this report, a full 10 of the 12 spies basically spread this report around the entire congregation. Remember that these scouts, with their job, right, they were chosen because they represented the chieftains of each people. So they had a lot of sway. Now, the two exceptions were Caleb and Joshua. And again, Joshua is the servant of Moses, right? He always serves under Moses, and he's Hosea, but later referred to as Joshua when Moses calls him so. So this is the same guy. So Caleb and Joshua are the only two who basically have faith, right? Because they've been told they're going to be delivered. And yes, they see these giant people, but compared to the might of the Spirit of God that has carried them all through the desert, what are these people but things to blow away, right? They've already been told that the current inhabitants are going to be on the way out. So while the other 10 are freaking out, these two are saying, "What are you talking about? It's great. It's going to be awesome." So here, Moses and Aaron, as well as these two scouts, all collapse. Why? Because now the people are screaming, "Oh, why did God bring us here just to let us get slaughtered and have our children and wives taken as prisoners? Oh, we should have just been left behind in Egypt, or we should have even just died in the desert. Anything would be better than what this is." So this obviously brings great despair to Moses, Aaron, as well as the two who gave a positive report. And keep in mind, what is it they saying? If only we had died in the land of Egypt, or if only we had died in this desert. And they're even talking about getting somebody to lead them to the land of Egypt. The portion concludes with the two objecting and saying, "It's a great land." Now we move on to the third portion, chapter 14, verse 8. "If the Lord desires us, he will bring us to this land and give it to us, a land flowing with milk and honey. But you shall not rebel against the Lord, and you will not fear the people of that land, for they are as our bread. Their protection is removed from them, and the Lord is with us. Do not fear them." The entire congregation threatened to pelt them with stones, but the glory of the Lord appeared in the tent of meeting to all the children of Israel. The Lord said to Moses, "How long will this people provoke me? How much longer will they not believe in me after all the signs I have performed in their midst? I will strike them with a plague and annihilate them. Then I will make you into a nation greater and stronger than they." Moses said to the Lord, "But the Egyptians will hear that you have brought this nation out from its midst with great power. They will say about the inhabitants of this land, who have heard that you, O Lord, are in the midst of this people, that you, the Lord, appear to them eye to eye, and that your cloud rests over them. And you go before them with a pillar of cloud by day, and with a pillar of fire by night. And if you kill this nation like one man, the nations who have heard of your reputation will say as follows: Since the Lord lacked the ability to bring this nation to the land which he swore to them, he slaughtered them in the desert. Now please, let the strength of the Lord be increased, as you spoke, saying, The Lord is slow to anger and abundantly kind, forgiving iniquity and transgression, who cleanses some and does not cleanse others, who visits the iniquities of parents on children, even to the third and fourth generations. Please forgive the iniquity of this nation in accordance with your abounding kindness, as you have borne this people from Egypt until now. And the Lord said, I have forgiven them in accordance with your word. However, as surely as I live, as the glory of the Lord fills the earth, that all the people who perceived my glory and the signs that I performed in Egypt and the desert, yet they have tested me these 10 times and not listened to my voice, if they will see the land that I swore to their fathers, and all who provoked me will not see it. But as for my servant Caleb, since he was possessed by another spirit, and he followed me, I will bring him to the land which he came, and his descendants will drive its inhabitants out. The Amalekites and the Canaanites dwell in the valley. Tomorrow turn back and journey into the desert toward the Red Sea. End of the third portion. So, as it begins, Caleb and Joshua, they defy the crowd, they defy everybody else, and they say, listen, if this is the will of the Lord that we're going to have this land, we're going to have this land. The Lord is not with those giants. The Lord is not with the current inhabitants. The Lord is with us. It doesn't matter how big those people are. They're nothing compared to our God. Unfortunately, the people don't take this very well. Instead, they respond by going full stupid, angry mob, and they even threaten to kill them by throwing stones at them. Then God steps in. The glory of the Lord appears, right? And so now the Lord says to Moses, just how long do these people plan on defying me? How much longer are they planning on making me angry? You know what? I've had enough of them. I've had enough. I'm going to wipe them all out, and I'm going to make you, Moses, into the great nation. Forget these people. But Moses, this conversation has happened once before. Moses says, my Lord, if you do that, what message is that going to send to everybody else about you? You brought those people out of Egypt, and you said you would deliver them to the promised land. But now, if you kill them, everyone's going to think that you lacked the ability to give them what you promised. They're going to think that you killed them because you couldn't honor your deal. So don't do that. Don't do that. You're a kind and forgiving Lord, as you've said, right? You forgive the iniquity of people, and you just remember what they've done, but you do forgive, right? And so this is a very compelling argument. Moses has won the case, and so God says, very well, I accept, but here's the circumstances. Since those people have rebelled against me and spoke against me, I will not let them enter the land. They will never get there. The children might, the children of Caleb, right, his people will, but those who spoke against me shall die in the desert. They will never see themselves enter that land. Now, go, turn away toward the Red Sea. And so we go to the fourth portion, chapter 14, verse 26. The Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, How much longer will this evil congregation who are causing to complain against me exist? The complaints of the children of Israel, which they cause them to complain against me, I have heard. Say to them, As I live, says the Lord, if not as you have spoken in my ears, so will I do to you. In this desert your corpses shall fall, your entire number, all those from the age of 20 and up who were counted, because you complained against me. You shall not come into the land concerning which I raised my hand that you would settle in it, except Caleb the son of Jephunneh and Joshua the son of Nun. As for your infants, of whom you said they will be as spoils, I will bring them there, and they will come to know the land which you despised. But as for you, your corpses shall fall in this desert. Your children shall wander in the desert for 40 years, and bear your defection until the last of your corpses has fallen in the desert. According to the number of days which you toured the land of 40 days, a year for each year, you will thus bear your iniquities for 40 years. Thus you will come to know my alienation. I, the Lord, have spoken. If I will not do this to the entire evil congregation who have assembled against me, in this desert they will end, and there they will die. As for the men whom Moses had sent to scout the land, who returned and caused the entire congregation to complain against him by spreading a slanderous report about the land. The men who spread an evil report about the land died in the plague before the Lord. But Joshua the son of Nun and Caleb the son of Jephunneh remained alive of the men who went to tour the land. Moses related all these words to the children of Israel, and the people mourned greatly. They arose early in the morning and ascended to the mountaintop, saying, "We are ready to go up to the place of which the Lord spoke, for we have sinned." Moses said, "Why do you transgress the word of the Lord? It will not succeed. Do not go up, for the Lord is not among you, so that you will not be beaten by your enemies. For the Amalekites and the Canaanites are there before you, and you will fall by the sword. For you have turned away from the Lord, and the Lord will not be with you." They defiantly ascended to the mountaintop, but the ark of the covenant of the Lord and Moses did not move from the camp. The Amalekites and the Canaanites who lived on the mountain came down and smote them and crushed them, pursuing them until Hormah. Chapter 15, verse 1. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when you arrive in the land of your dwelling place which I am giving to you, and you make a fire offering to the Lord, a burnt offering or a sacrifice, namely a peace offering, for an expressed vow or for a voluntary offering, or on your festivals, to provide a pleasing fragrance for the Lord, from the cattle or from the sheep. The one who brings his offering to the Lord shall present a meal offering containing 1/10 fine flour mixed with 1/4 of a hin of oil, and 1/4 of a hin of wine for a libation. You shall prepare with the burnt offering or for the sacrifice for each lamb, or for a ram you shall present a meal offering containing 2/10 fine flour mixed with 1/3 of a hin of oil, and 1/3 of a hin of wine for a libation. You shall offer up a pleasing fragrance to the Lord." All right, so that's the end of the fourth portion. So once again, Moses and Aaron having to deal with the Lord and his fury. So as it is said, the Lord says, how long am I going to have to put up with these people, this evil congregation? Everything I do isn't good enough for them, is it? So I'm going to do exactly what they said. They said it would be better if we simply remained in Egypt, or it would be better if we died in the desert. And so, since that's what they said, I'm going to grant their wish. I'm going to let them all die in the desert. But the children, who they said would have become spoils of war, I'm going to let them enter the country. And they're going to wander the desert with all of that old generation until the old generation perishes. And for the 40 days it took us to cross this desert, it's going to be 1 year for every day. So 40 years you will wander this desert. Oh, and by the way, those of you who spoke against the land, those 10 scouts, you're done for. Those 10 die of the plague, and Caleb and Joshua end up being completely fine. And in fact, they are blessed to be yes, you guys are going in. You will be able to enter the land despite the rest. And then everybody hears what happened, and they suddenly start crying, "Oh, no, how could this happen? How could this possibly have happened?" I'll give you a hint. But anyway, they're all, "Oh, we're so sorry. We'd like to go up now to the Holy Land now and offer a sin offering. Yes, we'd love to go up and do as he said, right? It'd be great." And Moses said, "What do you think you're doing? I just told you that God's had it with you people and that you're condemned to walk in the desert. What makes you think you can defy that now?" His exact words, "Why do you transgress the word of the Lord?" It's not going to work, right? Because you're going up against them and you don't have the power of God on your side. So that means you're going to get crushed. Because basically what the 10 spies or scouts had said was true. Those people were great. But the reason that it wouldn't matter is that they were fighting against the Lord. But in this case, they're going to be fighting against just a bunch of Israelites who are really not cut out for the job. So they try anyway, they attack, and they are destroyed. Now moving on to the second half of this, chapter 15 section. So now, business as usual, the Lord comes up with another note of what they're going to do when they get into the land. So when you make a fire offering, a burnt offering, sacrifice, right, or for a vow or a voluntary offering, etc., provide a pleasing fragrance from the cattle or from the sheep. The one who brings his offering shall present a meal containing, these particular qualities. So it's kind of interesting. It's basically, now that all drama has been settled, okay, back to business. So when you get there, this is what you're going to do. On to the fifth portion, chapter 15, verse 8. If you prepare a young bull as a burnt offering or a sacrifice by expressing a vow, or for a peace offering for the Lord, with the young bull he shall offer up a meal offering consisting of 3/10 fine flour mixed with half a hin of oil. And you shall offer half a hin of wine for a libation, a fire offering of pleasing fragrance to the Lord. So shall it be done for each ox or ram, or for a young sheep or young goat. In accordance with the number you offer up, so shall you present for each one according to their numbers. Every native born shall do it in this manner, to offer up a fire offering of pleasing fragrance to the Lord. If a proselyte resides with you, or those among you in future generations, and he offers up a fire offering of pleasing fragrance to the Lord, as you make it, so shall he make it. One rule applies to the assembly for yourselves and for the proselyte who resides with you. One rule applies throughout your generations, just as it is for you, so it is for the proselyte before the Lord. There shall be one law and one ordinance for you and the proselyte who resides with you. All right, so here we have the very clear language on what's going to be done in relation to these offerings, but it also makes clear that if you are doing this sort of thing and you're making a vow upon this kind of offering, whether you are a citizen of the assembly, right, as well as a proselyte dwelling among them. So basically the law applies evenly throughout the land. On to the sixth portion, chapter 15, verse 17. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, and you shall say to them, When you arrive in the land to which I am bringing you, and you eat from the bread of the land, you shall set aside a gift for the Lord. The first portion of your dough you shall separate a loaf for a gift. As in the case of the gift of the threshing floor, so shall you separate it. From the first portion of your dough you shall give a gift to the Lord in all your generations. And if you should err and not fulfill all these commandments, which the Lord spoke to Moses, all that the Lord commanded you through Moses, from the day on which the Lord commanded, and from then on, for all generations, if because of the eyes of the congregation it was committed inadvertently, the entire congregation shall prepare a young bull as a burnt offering for a pleasing fragrance for the Lord, with its prescribed meal offering and libation, and one young he-goat for a sin offering. The Kohen shall atone on behalf of the entire congregation of the children of Israel, and it shall be forgiven them, for it was an error, and they have brought their offering as a fire offering to the Lord, and their sin offering before the Lord because of their error. The entire congregation of the children of Israel and the proselyte who resides with them shall be forgiven, for all the people were in error. All right, cool. So now we're at the end of the sixth portion. So first up, when they get into the land, you're going to make sure that you set aside a gift for the Lord of the bread. The first portion of your dough, you shall separate a loaf for a gift. As in the case of the gift of the threshing floor, so shall you separate it, right? So the first bit goes to the Lord. The rest then goes to the rest. And then if you don't do this, if you make a mistake, then what you're going to do is you're going to prepare a young bull as a burnt offering, and then all of the necessary, fixings that go into a burnt offering and so on, the libations, a sin offering he-goat, and the Kohen will atone on behalf of the entire congregation, and they'll be forgiven. And that's really the process. So there you have it. Just as before, this applies not just to the congregation, but also the proselyte dwelling among them. All the people who are in error are forgiven together. Seventh portion, chapter 15, verse 27. But if an individual sins inadvertently, he shall offer up a she-goat in its first year as a sin offering, and the Kohen shall atone for the erring soul which sinned inadvertently before the Lord, so as to atone on his behalf, and it shall be forgiven him. One law shall apply to anyone who sins inadvertently from the native born of the children of Israel and the proselyte who resides among them. But if a person should act high-handedly, whether he is a native born or a proselyte, he is blaspheming the Lord, and that soul shall be cut off from among its people. For he has scorned the word of the Lord and violated his commandment, that soul shall be utterly cut off, for its iniquity is upon it. When the children of Israel were in the desert, they found a man gathering wood on the Sabbath day. Those who found him gathering wood presented him before Moses and Aaron and before the entire congregation. They put him under guard, since it was not specified what was to be done with him. The Lord said to Moses, "The man shall be put to death. The entire congregation shall pelt him with stones outside the camp." So the entire congregation took him outside the camp, and they pelted him to death with stones, as the Lord had commanded Moses. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the children of Israel, and you shall say to them that they shall make for themselves fringes on the corners of their garments throughout their generations, and they shall affix a thread of sky-blue wool on the fringe of each corner. This shall be fringes for you, and when you see it, you will remember all the commandments of the Lord to perform them, and you shall not wander after your hearts and after your eyes, after which you are going astray, so that you shall remember and perform all my commandments, and you shall be holy to your God. I am the Lord your God, who took you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am the Lord your God." All right, so there we have the end of the seventh portion. So once again, we have another note on the sinners. So if a person individually sins inadvertently, the offering is different. It's a she-goat in its first year. The Kohen shall atone for this person, and he will be forgiven. This, of course, applies to the congregation native-born and also the proselyte dwelling among them. But if a person should act high-handedly, whether native or proselyte, right, his soul shall be cut off for blaspheming the Lord. He has scorned the word of the Lord, violated his commandment, that soul shall be utterly cut off for his iniquity. So basically, those who do things on accident, it's forgivable. Or if you make a mistake. But if you are doing so high-handedly, right, so you're just going out of your way to break the rules and just completely disregarding without any consideration, that's a different matter. You're out of here. Now, next up, we get into a specific example. There's a man gathering wood on the Sabbath, right? And as we know, that is not allowed. No work is to be done on the Sabbath day. So Moses and Aaron, they receive this man. Those people who turned him in bring him to the two brothers, and they go, okay, let's ask God what he says we should do about this. And the judgment comes from the Lord. This man shall be put to death. They're going to pelt him with stones outside of the camp. So that's exactly what happens. And then after this, we get the note regarding the fringes. So they're told they're going to be making for all generations fringes that go on the end of the garment, and it's going to have a little bit of blue wool among it, and this will symbolize the commandments. So you're going to see these fringes, and they will remind you of what the commandments are, and it will stop you from doing the wrong thing. Think of it like when you put a string on your finger so that you won't forget something. That is also the purpose of the fringes. They are meant to be there to remind you, don't break the rules and don't wander where your hearts and eyes lead you. Instead, stay holy to the Lord. Remember this. Perform all my commandments, and you shall be holy to your God. And at the end, as always, I am the Lord your God, who took you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am the Lord your God. So the fringes, the tzitzit as they're called, are arguably one of the most important things, I'd say, for any person's daily Jewish life. This is one of the most open and shut situations. You should be wearing fringes if you can get your hands on them. And interestingly, it says very specifically that you should be having this blue thread among them. So I do find it quite curious that a lot of places they'll just do the fringes without the blue. I've always noticed that, and I thought it was a little weird because it says right there, it shall have a thread of sky blue wool. It says clearly there will be blue. So just something to keep in mind. If you own a pair, make sure it's got that blue thread, or else you're not going 100% correct. And even that itself is proof of your ability to follow the commandments, because it's being commanded right there. In any case, that's the end of Parashat Shelach. Very interesting, because this is really a generationally defining moment. The 12 scouts, 10 out of 12 come back to give a bad report and really are just the cherry on top of an entire pilgrimage exodus through the desert that has been fraught with complainers and troublemakers and whiners. This is the last straw, but rather than wipe them out, the verdict is, okay, you know what? Forget it. All you people who knew Egypt, and that's really what it comes down to. You all are going to die in the desert, but your children, who you condemned to be property or to be spoils of war, they're going to actually inherit the land. So, sorry, since you don't want it, you're not getting it, but they will. And that seems to be, this makes me think of Machiavelli's The Prince. This is a very interesting moment. All throughout the journey through the desert, they constantly say, oh, we should have stayed in Egypt. Oh, if only we had stayed in Egypt. And then it's, oh, why did he bring us out of here just to make us die in the desert? And now it's, oh, I wish he had just let us die in the desert instead of bringing us to this land where we're going to get conquered. So they never are content and they complain constantly. And this is finally just enough is enough already. But I do find it rather poetic. I mentioned, so Machiavelli's The Prince, right? He talks about the different kinds of nations that you can rule. And he points out that if you're replacing a monarch, right? If a king gets replaced with another king, usually the peasantry doesn't really care one way or the other. It's just a new guy you're paying taxes to. But if you're taking a country that had democracy and you're trying to change their form of governance, well, they already know that government and they know freedom, so you can't ever expect them to just capitulate and become ruled again. This is kind of a similar situation. You could think of it like this. The people who were in Egypt were quote-unquote ruined by their exposure to the people of Egypt and the ways of Egypt, whereas these children who are born in the desert, they don't really know better, or they were too young to be broken into becoming Egyptian influenced. So that's why it's anybody over the age of 20 from this moment until the end of the 40-year period will die in the desert. So yes, I am taking you to die in the desert, but your children will go on and actually enter the desert, or enter the land. So, you get what you wish for, but I'm still going to honor my promise because Moses was so very good at making a great point that I can't kill all of you. The people would all judge me for that. And the people outside of this congregation would surely be treated poorly. Now, or rather, view me as I was weak or something to that effect. Another thing that was interesting, as I live, or so long as I live, it's very interesting to see that kind of language, and this may be an English translation thing, but, God referring to it like, so long as I live, like the Lord says something to that effect, is it's very mortal, right? That's the statement, so long as I live, is very interesting, because it implies a sort of, even though we say that the Lord is infinite, there is an implication of some sort of finite quality that the notion of the Lord could not be alive is even possible. But rather, perhaps on the other end, it is the simple complexity. Or maybe there is indeed implied some way that could change, but I don't really want to go into that. Either way, this is a very interesting thing, but also, even though all the people except for those two did wrong, God did not make all of them suffer. He only punished the ones who did speak bad, but he actually rewarded those who didn't. So, as always, we see blessings and curses. Don't lose your faith, especially not when you need it most. That's the takeaway for this week's portion. Because otherwise, when you turn away from that which you have put your faith in, and that which has promised itself to look out for you, well, what do you have left? If you've gotten this far, especially after you've been shown amazing miracles, you should really not do something so stupid as to now suddenly say, oh, he won't honor the deal. So in any case, that's it for this week's portion. Thank you for listening, and I hope you found it educational. Until next time, this has been Shmuel Moshe with the Weekly Parashahcast, Parashat Shelach, coming to a close. Until then, Baruch Hashem.